we were discussing about quality of service, right? We discussed a lot of terminologies related to QoS. We'll be continuing with the same topic. So we discussed what is meant by QoS, what are the different QoS characteristics, the different categories of QoS. Then we discussed the layered model of QoS, example QoS parameters for different categories. And then we discussed about the three classes: guaranteed service class, predictive service class, and best effort service class, right? So we had seen this diagram which demonstrates what is meant by a guaranteed service class and what is meant by a best effort service class. Then we had seen the different categories of QoS parameters based on how many values are specified. We know that QoS can be of single value, pair value, triplet, etc. Right? So this was what we saw in the previous session. Now today we are going to see the overall framework of QoS. Okay, QoS mainly operates in two steps or two phases. So today we are going to see the two phases of QoS in detail. Okay, so just like in any other scenario, when you have a set of requirements, you have to specify them, right? As a client, if you are approaching any company to build any project or build any application, you will have a certain set of requirements. So that those requirements has to be specified, right? You need a software requirement specification, a document which enlists all your requirements. Similarly, in network also, you need to have a QoS specification. That means every application or every client needs to specify the QoS. That is, what are the expected QoS for that particular application. So the first step in the framework of QoS is a QoS specification mechanism. So the application has to specify its QoS requirements. That means what is the delay you can tolerate, what is the throughput that is expected. All those requirements, application requirements, has to be specified in the form of what is called as QoS specification, or it is also referred to as flow specification. Okay, so any application which wants a network service will have to first specify its requirements in the form of a QoS specification, or it's also called as the flow specification. Okay, now as I told, since I have network issues over here, I'm keeping my video off. Okay, now so that's the first step in QoS framework. The second step is you have made your requirements, right? Now it is up to the network to decide whether you can be admitted or your requirements can be met or can be serviced or not. So that is what is called as admission control. Okay, so the network will decide whether it will be able to satisfy your requirements, all the resources that you are requesting for can be allocated or not. So that procedure is what is called as admission control. So admission control is used to determine whether the application can be admitted or not. That means if suppose there are 2 or 3 applications which are competing for resources, and every application will be having different requirements. So depending upon the availability of resources, the network has to decide which application can be admitted, which is the priority application, all those things. That process is what is called as admission control. Okay, my voice is not breaking now.
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, so you have specified your requirements. The network will decide whether you can be admitted or not. Those are the first and second step. The third step is a negotiation process. Okay, now this negotiation process can be between you and the network. It could be between you and the peers. It could be across layers. So basically, suppose there are two applications. One thing is you can negotiate with the network. Whoever is the service provider, you can negotiate with that person. Second thing is you can negotiate among your peers. That means if there are two applications which are competing for the same resources, there can be mutual negotiation between these applications, or that which is in other words called as peer negotiation. So the third step in the framework of QoS is a negotiation which could be between the application and the service provider, that is a network, or it could be between peers, or it could be across layers. So the third step is what is called as QoS negotiation. So first step is you have to specify your requirements. Second step is that the network will decide whether this particular application can be admitted or not. The third step is minor negotiations between applications or by the application to the service provider is also possible. The fourth step is resource allocation. So once you have negotiated with the service provider and the peers, whatever resources you have requested for, if it is available, that will be allocated to you. Okay, that might depend upon what kind of QoS the network is providing. If it is a guaranteed QoS, then all what you have requested for will be allocated. If it is a predictive QoS, then based on the past behavior of your application, you might be allocated resources. Okay, so it depends upon which QoS class the application belongs to. The next step is that all the resources that you have requested for will be allocated and it will be scheduled. So scheduling will be done to meet the QoS requirements. Just like in processor, you have a processor scheduling processes like round robin, first come first serve. Like that, some kind of scheduling mechanism will be used by the network to schedule your requirements, okay, to meet your requirements. And the last step is called as traffic policing. Okay, so these are the 5 important steps in QoS framework. First, specify your requirements. Second, network will decide whether you can be admitted or not. Third thing is you can have negotiation. Fourth step is that once your negotiation everything is over, you will be allocated resources and scheduling will be done. Fifth step is called as traffic policing. Traffic policing means that the technique makes sure that all the applications generates the correct amount of data within the agreed specification. Okay, that means suppose an application has demanded for 10 Mbps data. I'm just quoting an example. Okay, your requirement is 10 Mbps of data, but during the execution or during your transmission, the application is changing its requirements. That means it is placing more load or more demand on the network than it was actually agreed in the specification. That is not allowed. So traffic policing is a technique in which what happens is it is ensured that all the applications are making use of the available resources and are not placing additional demand or load on the network other than in the which is specified in the agreed specification. So all the applications have to work within that agreed specification. How much ever they have requested for, that much they will be provided depending upon the availability of resources. Okay, these are the 5 steps in QoS framework. Now we have to see these 5 steps, the working of these 5 steps in detail. So as I said, QoS works in 2 phases. Okay, so all these steps occur in 2 different phases. The first phase is what is called as the establishment phase. Okay, so all these 5 steps work across 2 different phases, which is called as the first phase is called as the establishment phase, and the second phase is called as the enforcement phase. Okay, there are 2 steps or phases in QoS, which is called as establishment and enforcement. So all these 5 steps which we have seen here, we are going to look at it in detail. All these occur in these 2 phases. Either in establishment, these 5 points will come in either establishment or in enforcement. So now we are going to see the phases in detail. Okay, before that, this is the flow diagram which illustrates the concept of QoS framework. Okay, so just imagine that you are an application which has some requirements or demands to the network. Okay, so the first step, as I said, is the application will specify its requirements. What is the name of the document in which the application specifies its requirement? Somebody tell me, what is the name of the document in which the application specifies its requirement? Hey, why don't you answer? It is mentioned over here. What is the name of the document? It is called as flow specification. Okay, flow specification is a document in which all the requirements of the application will be listed out. Now what will happen? There is an entity called as QoS manager. Okay. QoS manager will evaluate whatever requirements you have made in the flow specification. All that requirements will be evaluated against the available resources. So basically the QoS manager will check whether the resources are sufficient amount of resources are available so that your demands can be satisfied or not. So if there are sufficient amount of resources available, what will happen? All the resources which you have requested for will be allocated. So that is what is given.
audio lag हो रहा.
Okay. So we have seen this second step where the QoS manager evaluates the requirements against the available resources. Okay. So if sufficient amount of resources are available, resources will be allocated. Okay. And then a resource contract will be signed. That means it's basically an agreement between you and the service provider. And the application will be allowed to proceed with its execution. Okay, so the application runs with whatever resources it has been allocated. Now, in case during the run of the application, your demands is varying or your demands is increasing, then the QoS manager needs to be intimated about this. Okay, that is what is mentioned here. So if during runtime your requirements are increasing, you need to notify the QoS manager of your increased requirements. Okay, you cannot proceed, place additional demands on the network just like that. You have to notify it to the QoS manager, and then the QoS manager will again go through all these steps. It will check whether sufficient amount of resources are there to meet your increased requirement or not. Just a minute. Okay. Now, in case sufficient amount of resources are not available. So these are the steps that will happen if resources are available. In case resources are not available, what you need to do? You need to either reduce your requirements, or you can probably negotiate with your peers so that if they are ready to run with a lesser amount of resources, you can do such a negotiation with your peer applications. So you can negotiate. Either you can reduce your requirements or you can negotiate with your peers. Okay. And after negotiation, if the network is able to provide you with the resources which you have requested, which might be lesser than your initial requirement, then you can proceed with the execution of the application. Otherwise, if the network is not able to provide you with the requested resources, the application will not be allowed to proceed. Okay. So this is basically a cyclic process. This is what is called as the QoS framework. Okay. So this diagram demonstrates the QoS framework. Is the concept of QoS framework clear?
Yes.
Okay. So whatever functions you saw now can be classified into two categories. Okay. Static QoS management functions and dynamic QoS management functions. So under static management functions comes QoS specification and QoS negotiation. Okay. Admission control and resource reservation. All these are functions which come under static QoS management functions. Dynamic QoS management functions involve QoS monitoring and QoS policing. Dynamic means basically if your requirements, if your request is changing during the application's run. Okay, the application is being run, but it is having increased requirements, or if there is severe congestion in the network, you may have to adjust your requirements in accordance to that, right? Such functions are what is called as dynamic QoS. So basically, it's during the runtime. Otherwise, it is called as static QoS management functions. So all these functions which we saw now, all these steps that we saw now in the framework can come under either static QoS management functions or dynamic QoS management functions. Okay. So now let's look at the two phases which I mentioned, establishment phase and enforcement phase in detail. Okay. Now coming to the first phase, which is called as the establishment phase. Okay. Establishment phase has three main steps. One is QoS translation, second one is QoS negotiation, and the third one is QoS routing. Okay. Now coming to the first point, which is called as QoS translation. QoS translation means the application has certain QoS parameters, right? So you might be using some different terminologies, or for a particular parameter, the application might be using a different terminology for the parameter, whereas the network might have a different terminology for that particular parameter. Okay. For example, I'm just quoting an example. Suppose for delay, the application is using the parameter name as delay. Okay. But when it comes to the network, instead of delay, if it is measured as latency, basically delay and latency are the same, right? You are specifying it as delay, whereas the network is specifying it as latency. Both the terminologies mean the same, right? So there needs to be a mapping so that it is understood that delay and latency are the same. So similar to that, the QoS parameters might vary for the application, for the user, for the network, right? But basically they may be the same. So there needs to be a mapping or you can say QoS translation at different layers. So that is the first step in phase one, which is translation, QoS translation of QoS parameters at different layers. The second step is QoS negotiation, and third step is QoS routing. Let's come to the first step, that is QoS translation. Okay. So this diagram represents the phases, the steps in the establishment phase. So once your parameters are decided, okay, there needs to be this step which is called as translation. Okay, translation means basically mapping between the QoS parameters across different layers. So once mapping is done, the second step is negotiation. So negotiation can be between peer-to-peer, or it can be across layers. That's a different thing. The third thing is application to transport layer translation. So basically it is translation across different layers, which is done by an entity which is called as QoS translator. And depending upon the changing requirements, negotiation and renegotiation can be done. And then your parameters will be routed. That is step number 4. So step number 1 and 3 are basically the same. It comes under QoS translation. After translation, you have negotiation. And after negotiation, you have QoS routing. Okay. So the 3 steps in establishment phase are translation. Translation can be between user or application. Translation can also be between application and transport layer. Translation can be between peer-to-peer also. So then the second step is QoS negotiation, and the third step is QoS routing. So basically this diagram demonstrates the establishment phase. Now coming to the first point, which is called as translation. So as I said, translation can be between the user and the application. It could be between the application and the system. It could be between the system and the network. So these are 3 types of translation which can happen. Okay. For example, okay, if you're placing a demand to the network or to the application, you might have, as I said, you might use a different terminology for placing your demand. That application has to understand that this is what you're requesting for. So that's what is called as translation. So that translation needs to happen between the user and the application. The user will first make its demand. Application will first comprehend and understand what your demands are. That's a translation between user and the application. The same way, there needs to be a translation between application and system and the network. Okay. Now, an additional point, an additional aspect which can happen here is called as media scaling. Okay, media scaling can be audio scaling or video scaling. So this is basically the scaling of audio or video of the application depending upon the current condition of the network. Okay, based on the current scenario, you can either increase your requirements or you can downgrade your requirements. That is what is meant as scaling. So that can be done across the temporal time dimension or across the space dimension. Basically, you are reducing some of your requirements depending upon the condition of the network. That is another thing which can happen along with translation. Okay, so the first step is translation. The second step is called as negotiation. So negotiation means, as I said, it can happen between a peer to a peer. It can happen between a peer and the service provider, a client and a service provider. It can happen across layers. So this diagram, as you can see, is an example for a QoS negotiation. So you can see here there are two applications. This is application 1 and this is application 2. So these two people are basically negotiating their requirements because currently there are not sufficient resources which can satisfy both of their demands. So if the resources are not sufficient to satisfy the demand of application 1 and application 2, they can enter into what is called as a negotiation. Okay, so this negotiation process can be of three types: bilateral negotiation, bilateral peer-to-peer negotiation, triangular negotiation, and triangular negotiation with bounded value. So the negotiation that can happen here is classified into three types: bilateral peer-to-peer negotiation, triangular negotiation, and triangular negotiation with bounded value. Okay, now the first one, bilateral QoS negotiation, means it's basically a peer-to-peer negotiation. Okay, suppose this is you, and this is your friend. Okay, you both have requirements, but the resources are not sufficient. Okay, so using the existing resources or within the constraints that is there, you both want to execute. So it's just like that. So what do? You are application 1 and this is application 2. You will negotiate among yourselves, right? Because both of you want to execute, or both of the applications want to run within the with the available resources. So you will make a connection through the service provider with the so application 1 will make a connection with application 2, or in other words, the caller will make a connection with the callee, and then you will request for a particular QoS value. That means this is what I want. I want this much bandwidth. So you will specify your QoS value to the application 2. So application 1 will specify that this is my demand. This is how much I want for a particular QoS parameter. For example, bandwidth. Now your request will be transmitted via the network by the service provider to the application 2. Okay. Now the application 2 will analyze whether how much he or she can negotiate, how much the particular application can negotiate or sacrifice, and then it will send back a changed QoS value. Okay, so this QoS value will be mostly smaller than the requested QoS value. Okay, or it could be greater also. But here what is happening? A negotiation is happening between the caller and callee, or in other words, application 1 and application 2. You may not get the requested QoS, but you will get a changed QoS value in return. So this changed QoS value is transmitted back via the service provider to the application 1. That means this is how much I can agree upon. That information is being communicated to application 1 by application 2. This is called as bilateral QoS negotiation. That means basically it is negotiation between two peers. Okay, got it? Are you able to follow? Yes or no? The second kind of negotiation is triangular negotiation. Okay, so triangular negotiation is not just between peer to peer. You can see here caller is making a connection via the service provider to the callee. Okay, it is requesting for a particular QoS value, but you can see here this value has been changed and transmitted. So whatever you have requested here is changed by the network or by the service provider and transmitted. That means the service provider knows that the value which you are requesting for a particular QoS is not acceptable, that cannot be supplied, something like that. So what will happen? The service provider is changing the QoS value and sending it to application 2. Application 2 is further modifying the QoS value and then sending that information back to application 1. That means basically there is a negotiation, there's a triangular negotiation which is happening between the caller, the service provider and the callee, or in other words application 1, service provider and application 2. This is what is called as triangular negotiation. Is this clear? Is this clear?
Can you repeat once?
See, it's like you and your friend, okay? We have limited resources. You and your friend want to run, okay? Using the resources. So you two have your demands. So suppose it happens via me, okay? The allocation of resources happens via me, something like that. So you want to negotiate with your friend, but you cannot do it directly. You have to do it through me. So you have requested for a particular QoS value. Then I understand that whatever you requested for is too much. So what I will do is I'll adjust it a little bit. I'll increase it. I'll decrease the requested QoS value a little bit because I know that what you've requested for is too much. And then I'll transmit that value to your friend. Okay. And then your friend will analyze the scenario and he or she will transmit the value that is negotiable, that is acceptable for him or her. Okay, that information is transmitted back to you. It is upon you whether you want to proceed or do not want to proceed running the application. So it's just like that. So the negotiation is not between two entities, but there's a third entity involved, which is the service provider. So you'll first transmit your request through the service provider. The service provider will analyze the availability of resources and he will modify the QoS value which you have requested for. And then that will be transmitted to the application 2 or the callee. The callee will further make modifications to the QoS value depending upon his or her requirements and then send that information back. This is called as triangular QoS negotiation. Clear?
Okay. Yes.
Now, the third type of negotiation is triangular negotiation with bounded value. Okay. Here there is an interval. That means you are not specifying a single QoS value. Okay. You are actually specifying an interval. Like this is the lowest value which I can accept. This is the highest value which I can accept. So you can see here there is an interval. It is not a single value that you are specifying. This is the lowest QoS value which you can accept, and this is the highest QoS value, which, or in other words, this is actually your requirement. You want this much QoS value, but you are okay with a value which is lesser than that also, but it should be greater than this value. So actually, instead of specifying a single value, you are specifying, you are also specifying your lowest quality that is acceptable to you and the highest quality which is actually your demand. So you are specifying a value which is there very close to your target value. Okay, so you can see here this one is what you have requested for. This is what you're requesting for, and that is very close to the highest value that can be demanded. Okay, this is the highest value, this is the lowest acceptable value, and you're placing your demand. Now that is transmitted over the network. Now the service provider has made a modification. So he's saying that this is not possible. This much amount of resources or this much value for this QoS parameter cannot be allocated. He's changing it, but the changed value is also within the range which you have specified. See here, this is the range which you have specified, right? The changed value is also, so service provider has changed it, but that is within your range. So that is quite acceptable to you. And then that is transmitted to the application 2. Now application 2 is further decreasing it. See here, application 2 has further reduced, but again that is within the range which you have requested for. And then it will send that this is what I can negotiate or I can provide you. So that information is transmitted back to the caller or the application 1. This is called as triangular negotiation with bounded value. So instead of specifying a single value, you are also specifying what is the lowest quality which is acceptable to you for this particular parameter, and what is the target, what is the maximum value that you would probably want. And then you will specify a value which is very close to the target. That value will be modified by the service provider as well as by the client, the callee, which is receiving your request. So this type of negotiation is called as triangular negotiation with bounded value. Is that clear? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now you have specified your requirements in a flow specification. You have negotiated also. Now this information is to be transmitted, right? It should be transmitted over the network, your specifications and your negotiated information. That means your final requirements. You had an initial specification, you negotiated with the peers and network, and now you have your final specification. Now this information needs to be transmitted. That is what is called as QoS routing. Okay, so QoS routing is also done in the first establishment phase only. So we need to identify the path through which the QoS requirements has to be transmitted. Okay, now that can be done using three types of routing algorithms or routing techniques. The first one is hop by hop routing, second one is source based routing, and the third one is hierarchical routing algorithm. So these are three routing algorithms for transmission of QoS information. Let's see them one by one in detail. Okay, the first technique is called as hop by hop routing. Hop by hop routing is a technique where every router will just know the next hop towards the destination. Okay, so suppose you want to transmit your QoS information to a particular application. So you are application 1 and you want to send it to application 2. Okay, now there will be a lot of routers or lot of intermediate devices in between. Okay, so for you to transmit this your QoS requirement, you need to identify the path through which it is to be transmitted. That can be done using three main techniques. The first one is hop by hop routing. So in hop by hop routing, what happens is that this person who is beginning the transmission knows only the next hop, okay, towards the destination. That means it does not know the entire path. There's no predefined path through which your packet will be transmitted. So a particular device or a particular router just knows the next hop towards the destination. So whenever a packet arrives, what will happen is that the router will forward the packet to the next hop router. So in that way, so every router knows the next path towards the destination, next router towards the destination. So in that way, the packet will be routed from router to router and it will reach its destination. An example for such a routing algorithm is, I don't know if you have heard about this, there's a routing protocol which is called as Routing Information Protocol. RIP is an example for a hop by hop routing algorithm. So hop by hop routing means every router knows the next hop only. Okay, it does not know the entire path from the source to the destination. So packets will be routed or transmitted from router to router, and in the end it will reach the destination. This is called as hop by hop routing. Now source based routing means every router will have a global state information about the network. Okay, the pathway is selected based on the state information. That means suppose you are sending something from a source to a destination. Okay, and there are 5 routers in between, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So every router in this every intermediate router has an idea about the entire network. That is what is called as global state information. Have you learned about link state routing and distance vector routing in computer networks? Are those topics?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, they just started teaching it today.
Okay. So it's like this, that every router will have some information about the entire network. Okay, and suppose you want to send something from here to you want to send something from bench number 1 to the last bench in your classroom. Okay, so you might have identified the route through which you will send that object or you will pass that object, right? So every router in the network has some idea about the network. That means which are the paths that are working, which are the links that are working, which are the links that are down. So you have that information with you, and you will identify the path, and then you will transmit that packet. Okay, so the path is predetermined. The path is identified in the beginning itself, and your packet is sent over that path. Whereas in hop by hop routing, that path is not identified. It's not predefined. Every router will know the path to the next router only, right? So that's the difference between hop by hop and source based routing. The third kind of routing is called as hierarchical routing algorithm. Okay, so these are three different types of routing algorithm which can be used for just sending QoS information from a particular caller to a particular calling. Okay, the third algorithm is hierarchical routing algorithm. In hierarchical routing algorithm, all the routers, okay, so suppose you have a source over here and you have a destination over here to which you want to communicate, and suppose there are some routers, intermediate routers in the path from source to destination. So here the routers are organized into certain logical groups. Okay, that means if there is this is router number 1, this is router number 2, and this is router number 3, they'll form one group. 4, 5, and 6 will form probably another group. 7 and 8 will form another group. So the routers in the intermediate path are organized into logical groups. Okay. Now the specialty over here is that all these routers do not have information about the entire network. Okay, so only the router at the border. Okay, suppose here 3 is the router at the border. This router will have information about all the people in this network. Okay, that means it will have information about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many of our routers are there in this logical group. It will have complete information about all the routers in this logical group. And along with that, it will have some information about the next logical group also. Okay, so apart from having detailed information about every router in that logical group, it will have some integrated information about all the other groups which are there in that network. Okay, so here every node contains detailed information about its group and integrated information about the other groups. Okay, so within the group you will have information about each and every entity involved, but the border nodes, particularly the border nodes, will have detailed information about all other groups. For example, okay, look at this diagram. So this diagram is an example for hierarchical routing, and you can see there are three groups: A1, A2, sorry, three groups: A1, A2, and A3 form logical group A. B1, B2, and B3 from logical group B, and C1, C2 from logical group C. Okay, so you have three logical groups: A, B, and C. So as you can see here, this is level 1 logical group and this is level 2 logical group. Okay, so if you have a logical group like this is A1, this is A2, and A3. Okay. A1 will have information about A2 and A3. A2 will have information about A1 and A3. A3 will have information about A1 and A2. Okay, but this person A3 will have integrated information about the other logical group, the logical group B and the logical group C. Okay, this is what is called as hierarchical routing. So particularly the border node will have integrated information about other logical groups also. It will have detailed information about the nodes within the group plus integrated information about other logical groups. So here A3 will have information about A1 and A2 and A3 plus information about this logical group, some information about logical group B and some information about logical group C. So routing will be done using that information, using that available integrated information. This technique is what is called as hierarchical routing. Now since you have different levels over here, so these A, B, and C are at one level logical group, and this is like another hierarchy. This is another hierarchy. Why is this denoted using A, B, and C denoted as another hierarchy? So see, out of this, it is A3 which is in the next level. Out of this, it is probably B3 which is there in the next level. Out of C1 and C2, it is probably C1 which is in the next level. So here A3, B3 and C1 have a higher level of information. So they come in the level 2 group. So you are basically classifying all the nodes or all the routers in the network into different logical groups, and these logical groups may fall in different levels. So basically there is a hierarchical structure involved. That is why it is called as hierarchical routing algorithm. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. So we saw about phase 1, right? What is happening in phase 1? Phase 1, you are placing your requirements. Your requirements are translated. Your requirements are negotiated. Your requirements are routed. Now, once everything is okay, what will the network do? It will provide guarantee to you, and it will allocate whatever resources you have requested for. Okay, all those things happen in the phase 1. In phase 2, as I said, there is enforcement or control or adaptation. That means if the network is changing, if the condition of the network is changing, or if your requirements are changing, all that things will be monitored in phase 2, right? So establishment phase, you have translation, you have negotiation, you have routing. After that, the 4th step is resource admission, followed by resource reservation and resource allocation. Okay, the first is probably translation, the second is negotiation, the third is routing. Okay, so renegotiation may happen in between. So you have made your flow specification, you have requested for whatever you want, you have negotiated with your clients. So all the final information is now ready. Now it is up to the network to admit you. Okay, so the next step is resource admission. So different tests are done to check whether a particular application can be admitted or not. So we need to see what are those tests which are done before resource admission. So once you are admitted, resource reservation and resource allocation happens. Okay, so let's see these points, that is admission, reservation and allocation now. Now, there is a model which is very popularly used for this process, that is admission, reservation and allocation, which is called as the LBAP model. Okay, linear bounded arrival process model, that is the expansion of LBAP. Let's see how these models work. Okay, now we'll take an example for the time being. Consider that M is the maximum message size, which is specified in bytes. We are going to see the working of the LMAP model. Just an example, okay? R is the maximum message rate and B is the maximum burstiness. Okay? Remember what is meant by burstiness? Burstiness means it is related to jitter. Okay? Maximum, suppose there is a burstiness of 10 packets per second or 20 packets per second. So what is the maximum burstiness the application can survive or handle? So M is the maximum message size, R is the message rate, and B is the maximum burstiness. Okay, so burstiness might be is mostly larger than R value. R is the message rate at which you can normally handle the normal flow of messages. So if M, R, and B mean these things, let's see how we can predict the utilization of resources. Okay, how much resources the application is going to utilize. So for example, so the maximum number of messages arriving at a particular resource can be calculated using the formula N is equal to B plus R into time interval. Okay, R is the rate, B is the burstiness, M is the message. So the maximum number of messages arriving at a particular resource, your resource can be a router or it could be any other entity, it can be calculated as N is equal to B plus R into time interval. And the maximum average rate r dash in bytes per second can be calculated as m into r. Okay, messages into rate. Will give you the maximal average rate. And maximal buffer size can be calculated. That means if there is a burst of messages that is coming, you will need a buffer or you'll need a queue to allocate that, to handle that burstiness, right? Suppose normally you can handle 10 packets per second, but suddenly there's a burstiness. That means 20, suddenly there is a flow of 20 packets per second. Whether you will be able to handle this burstiness of 20 packets per second. So for that, for handling that, you might require a queue or a max buffer, right? So the buffer size that is required by the application can be calculated as m into b plus 1. Okay. Now, given these formulas, suppose m is equal to 1176 bytes per message. So the values of m, r, and b is given to you. Okay. The message is of 1176 bytes size. R is 75 messages per second. So that is the normal rate at which messages are transmitted. And B is burstiness. Okay. B is 10 messages. So suppose if you want to calculate for a particular time interval of 1 second, the maximum number of messages which are arriving at a resource, that can be calculated using the formula that we saw now, right? N is equal to B plus R into time interval. So when you estimate that value, you'll get it as 85 messages. Okay. You can calculate the value of r dash by substituting these values in the same formula. R dash is equal to m into r. Then you will get the number of number of bytes per second, maximum average data rate. And then you can also calculate the maximum buffer size by using this formula, m into b plus 1. Okay. So this, what we have seen is how we can estimate the amount of resources that will arrive at a particular router. So we can basically calculate the processing speed of that router and the buffer size that is required for that router using such models. There are several models which are used to estimate such things. That is the resource, the amount of resources that would be utilized by a router or a particular device in the network. So LBAP is just an example, is one example for such a model. So before the admission tests are done, all this information is estimated. Okay. So you can estimate the processing capability of all the devices using such models like LBAP. Now, once you calculate that, you can perform these admission tests, which I mentioned. So after your routing information is done, we have these tests called as resource admission, resource reservation, and resource allocation. So before resource admission, we will use some model like LBAP to estimate the requirements or the processing capability of every device in the network. And then only these tests are performed. So examples for admission tests are packet schedulability tests for switches and interfaces, spatial tests for buffer allocation, link bandwidth test. So basically you are testing that is whether a particular application can be allocated resources or not. So for that you are doing all these tests, whether schedulability test, buffer allocation test, bandwidth test. That is basically you are checking whether sufficient bandwidth is there, sufficient buffer space is there, whether the packet transmission can be scheduled or not using this admission test. So once all these admission tests return a success, that particular application will be admitted. Once the application is admitted, resources will be reserved for these applications. Okay. So now application 1 has been allowed to execute, right? It has been allowed to run. Then resource reservation is done for application 1. So whatever requirements it has specified in the flow specification document, that will be reserved. Now this reservation can be done in two types of way. One is the pessimistic approach and the other is the optimistic approach. Okay. Pessimistic approach means worst case reservation of resources. That means suppose you are asking your mother or father for 100 rupees for traveling from a place to the other. Okay. Suppose your mother is anticipating that some issue might occur when you're traveling from here to there and she's giving you 50 rupees extra. So that becomes a pessimistic approach. She's anticipating that some issue might occur and reserving more resources than what is actually required. Okay. I'm just demonstrating it with an example. Okay. To make the concept clear to you. Don't write all those things. So pessimistic approach means you are basically doing over reservation of resources. Okay. And optimistic approach means whatever is required, you ask for 100 rupees, you are given 100 rupees. Okay. So that's the average case reservation of resources. So you can say that predictive class, QoS class, and predictive QoS class is an example for an optimistic approach, and you can say that guaranteed QoS class is like a pessimistic approach, because in guaranteed QoS class there is over reservation of resources. Okay, so even though you do not need that much resources, it is allocated, so that will cause wastage of resources. So that approach is what is called as pessimistic approach. And if only sufficient amount of resources which you have requested for is allocated, that is called as optimistic approach. Okay. So for doing the resource reservation, there are different types of tables which are used, which are called as resource table, reservation function. So I think you might have heard of this banking algorithm. Have you heard of this banking algorithm in networks? Have you studied Banker's algorithm? No, I think. Okay.
No, I don't remember.
So just that to manage the resource reservation, there are additional data structures that are used, like resource table, which will contain the details of the process, how much resources you have allocated, all those things. It's how much it requested for, how much it allocated for. There's also reservation function which will do the calculation of the resources. These are all additional data structures which are required for the resource reservation to happen properly. Okay. So resource reservation could be sender initiated or receiver initiated. That means if you are sending something from the source to the client, this reservation can be initiated by the sender or the receiver. So reservation can also be classified into two types based on who is initiating the reservation. Okay. So this is which happens in phase 1. So phase 1 is doing a lot of things, right? It is doing flow specification, it is doing negotiation, it is doing translation, it is doing routing, it is doing admission, it is doing reservation. A lot of things are happening in phase 1. And in phase 2, you have the enforcement operations. That means basically the network has to monitor whether you are operating within your means, whatever is allocated to you, you're utilizing those resources only, or are you making additional demands, or are you creating congestion in the network. So all these things have to be monitored in runtime, right? And enforcement has to be done. That is a phase 2 about. So phase 2 is involves steps like resource scheduling, rate control. So we'll see rate control or techniques to improve QoS in the next session in detail. So basically just understand that it involves techniques which monitors in runtime, ensures that the particular application is running within the agreement. That means it is not making additional demands. Error control, flow control, all these are the steps that happens in the enforcement phase. Okay. So in addition to that, there is QoS monitoring also, which could be user mode monitoring, user monitored, or network monitored. So basically whether you are operating within the requirements that you have requested in the QoS, in the flow specification. That is what is monitored, whether you are adhering to the contract, to the QoS contract or not. Then there's something else which is happening, which is called as QoS degradation. That means suppose there is severe congestion in the network. Okay. So if there is severe congestion in the network and the network is not able to allocate the resources which the application had requested, in that case, it can go for a strategy which is called as QoS degradation. That means instead of taking away all the resources instantly, what it can do is it can gradually negotiate, and it can take away, it can reduce your whatever resources have been allocated to you. It can reduce the amount of resources whatever has been allocated to the application gracefully, slowly, okay, in such a way that the application does not crash all of a sudden. Okay, that is what is called as QoS degradation. QoS renegotiation can be done. So in case there is congestion, renegotiation can be done between all the entities which are involved. QoS adaptation. So I can probably, if I have a demand of 100 Mbps and the network is really bad, maybe I can reduce my demands, right? And adapt according to the network conditions. That is what is called as QoS adaptation. So all these things which happen in runtime and ensure that a particular application is adhering to the contract which it has, QoS contract which it has signed, that all those things happen in the second phase, which is called as enforcement phase. Scheduling, error control, flow control, rate control, resource adaptation, QoS degradation, renegotiation, all this happen in the phase 2. Okay. Deallocation also happens in the phase 2. Suppose the application 1 has finished its execution or finished whatever job it was supposed to do. All the resources that has been allocated to that application 1 can be now freed so that it can be used to satisfy the demand of another application, right? So this second phase also involves a process which is called as tear down phase. So tear down phase means basically releasing all the resources that has been reserved for this particular application because it is done with its job. That is what is called as tear down process. So in phase 2, you have a lot of techniques that will monitor whether the QoS contract is maintained, and then once the application has finished running, all the resources that has been allocated to that application will be released. So it's just like your memory allocation and deallocation. So all the memory goes back to the free pool, right? Same way, all the resources are also freed so that it can be used up by some other application. Again, this can be sender initiated or receiver initiated. Okay. This is the entire framework, what is called as the entire QoS framework. So this is actually a very big topic, which is QoS. So you can expect a lot of questions from this topic, like explain QoS, layered model of QoS, explain the different QoS classes, explain the few phases in QoS management. A lot of questions can be expected from this topic. Okay, this is important not only from multimedia, from this subject of point of view. This is there. QoS is basically a network concept. Okay, so you might be studying this in detail in computer networks also. Okay, so tomorrow we'll continue with the same topic, but we'll be discussing the techniques that are required to improve QoS. Okay.